Hey guys, this is Matt here on the Vinyl Head UK channel, and I've got another vinyl appreciation video for all of you guys. Now, I've been collecting for a couple of months now. My collection is up to around about 40, which, I appreciate isn't a lot compared to some people out there, but I've only been doing it a couple of months. Last week, I decided to buy 4 records. Saw them on Discogs, decided to get them. One of those is an absolute classic hard rock metal album, one of the best ever made. And on that record is one of my all-time favourite hard rock metal tracks. It's up against a lot of amazing songs out there, but this one for me stands out as one of my very favourite, one of the best songs ever written. I love this one. So let's see what it is. It is, of course, the incredible Rising, or Rainbow Rising, by Rainbow, of course. One of the greatest vocalists to ever live, with the mighty Ronnie James Dio. I had to get it. I did. I've been getting records that, some bands that I don't know as well, that I've checked out, decided to go and get them. I want to build up my collection huge, hundreds if I can. But also I want to get the classic albums. The thing coming into vinyl collecting for me, which has been most exciting, a lot of these records I own on CD, but going back, starting a vinyl collection, it's like starting this amazing music collection from scratch. Getting to go back and get the excitement of buying these records and having them arrive and listening to them for the first time. Yeah, I listened to these records on CD when Rainbow Rising arrived in CD. I put it on in the excitement of hearing it come through the speakers for the first time. And that's the same with these vinyl that I'm buying. I've listened to this record 100 times, but it's still exciting that first time. Open up the vinyl, stick it on the record player and go. Same with some of these other records that I've listened to probably thousands of times. Kill 'Em All by Metallica, the Sabbath stuff, the Aerosmith stuff, whatever else. But also at the same time, it's nice to be getting records that I haven't got on CD of bands that I don't know as well. The Black Breath stuff, got some Vector coming up this week to show you guys as well. Stuff like that. But I had to get this classic album. And it sounds immense. As I say, Ronnie James Dio, who was the vocalist for Rainbow initially, and then went on to sing for Sabbath once Ozzy had left. I only got to see him once perform live before he sadly passed away. And that was with Heaven and Hell back in, it must have been like 07, something like that, 06 maybe. And that was in Birmingham. So Heaven and Hell, of course, Sabbath with Dio fronting. They didn't call themselves Black Sabbath on this sort of reunion. It was Heaven and Hell. Of course, we know the album, we know the track Heaven and Hell. And that's when I got to see Dio. So in his later years, before he sadly passed, I was due to see him at a couple of festivals. But obviously his health got bad and they had to cancel, and then obviously his death. I was due to see him at Bloodstock, and then High Voltage, which was a festival that ran for a couple of years down in London. We were meant to see him there as well, but yeah, sadly, his illness got the better of him. Didn't get to see him those times. But that time in Birmingham on the arena show, so good. I'm so glad I got to see him at least once. Richie Blackmore is someone that I've got to see in recent years twice. I'm not old enough to have, I wasn't even around in the 70s or the early 80s. So I wouldn't have got to see Rainbow how they were here perform live. But I got to see Richie Blackmore do his Richie Blackmore's Rainbow stuff with Ricky Romero on vocals. I got to see him twice in Birmingham. when they were doing the arena stuff, and that was fantastic. And that was Richie Blackmore doing, you know, Rainbow, doing Deep Purple. They were two amazing nights. Ricky Romero, fantastic vocalist. Obviously not quite up there maybe with Ian Gillan or Ronnie James Dio, but still solid nonetheless. But let's come back to this record. Let's talk about this record. So let me show you real quick again. I'm sure you all know this artwork like the back of your hand. Everybody knows this record. Everybody knows the tracks on it. I'm sure you all know that one track that I spoke about at the beginning. I don't think you'll need 3 guesses to guess which track I'm talking about. I might surprise you, but I don't think I will. So this was released back in 1976. This is a 2015 European reissue that was put out by Polydor. But this is actually part of a Back to Black series, which I think is a pretty good series. I've got a couple on Back to Black. And I like the sound of them, very much so. But yeah, what is there to say about this album? It's not a long one. It's 33 minutes, of which side 2 has 2 tracks at 8.5 minutes. So you can work the maths out there. Side A, side 1, doesn't have overly long tracks, but then those 2 epic ones on side 2 there. This was very much the, I guess, founder of a couple of subgenres. We could probably say that symphonic prog metal came about potentially from this album. There's a track. It's Stargazer. You know, I'm not going to hold you in suspense any longer. I love Stargazer. Who doesn't? And Stargazer, of course, had the Philharmonic Orchestra. I think it was Munich Philharmonic Orchestra on. So that symphonic sound to Stargazer with that progressive feel to the music as well. And I think it kind of gave birth to a subgenre, or at least that subgenre could take from Stargazer and take from this record as well. I think some people have also said this is kind of the start of power metal. I don't know about that. I hear elements of that probably bands could take away to form power metal. I wouldn't say this is a power metal record as such. But then it probably does have those influences that have gone on to shape that subgenre of metal. It definitely, in terms of lyrical content, has that sort of Dungeons and Dragons feel to it. You know, even on the artwork, which we'll look at in a sec, is that visual of that sort of element, which a lot of the power metal bands have took away and sung about, and their visuals. You only have to look at bands like Manowar, for example, and what they used to dress up in, like the weird loincloth stuff and the swords and everything, and even all the you know, the Scandinavian bands, Blind Guardian, Edguy, bands like that. There's imagery and there's lyrical content, which I guess, yes, could draw away from this record very much so. You know, Dio had a very sort of, he maybe not pigeonhole's the right word, but he definitely went into that area, and that was his main draw for lyrical content. It's the Dungeons and the Dragons and the fantasy and stuff like that. Maybe came away a little bit on Black Sabbath stuff, and that was more towards religion. You know, we only have to say about heaven and hell. But yeah, I mean, an album that can do that is pretty incredible to really give birth, I guess, to 2 different subgenres of metal. It's the second release by Rainbow. It was released less than a year after that first record of Rainbow came out. Obviously, Richie Blackmore came away from Deep Purple to form this project. He wasn't happy with the direction that Deep Purple were going in. He wanted that hard rock sound. He came away from Deep Purple. He formed Rainbow. That's why, you know, we still see it as Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, because it was his band that he formed. He brought Dio in from Alf, who he was singing with before. He brought other members from Alf in. But then on this second record, you know, we saw a different lineup. The only one that stayed on from, other than Richie Blackmore himself, the only one to have stayed on from that first album is, of course, Ronnie James Dio. On this album, so we had Dio on vocals, Blackmore on guitar. We had Jimmy Bain coming in on bass. And then on drums, of course, Cozy Powell. What a drummer to bring in. You know, talk about building your brand and building your band into this powerhouse by bringing Cozy Powell in. And then, of course, Tony Carey on keyboards as well. So quite the group that Blackmore formed here on this second album. And the first album's very good. The first record is solid, but we saw a growth. We saw a step up with Rising. And as I say, it is one of the best metal records out there. I love this. It's short, but it's to the point. Especially side B, you know, it's Stargazer. I'm going to keep going on about how good is that. This also had Martin Birch producing. So we've talked about Martin Birch in a different video. If you go and check out my Killers by Iron Maiden video, that's another record that he produced and engineered. And I spoke about, you know, his list of clients, if you will. Rainbow, Whitesnake, Maiden. These bands that he was producing were those huge British rock, hard rock metal bands with some fantastic production. I talked a little bit about maybe overproduction on Killers. But it produced results, you know. All of these records that he did were fantastic, amazing, hard rock metal records. Let's look at the artwork. As I say, we touched upon it a little bit. As I say, I'm sure you all know it by now. It is that fantasy imagery that we can see there of these cliffs or kind of mountains, jagged, with the water and what looks like kind of cloud, and this huge fist coming out holding that rainbow. You know, has that rainbow risen from the depths? Is that the clue? Is it the fact that the band Rainbow is rising with their sound? Again, you can interpret it how you want, and that's the beauty with music. It's up to your own interpretation. The Polydor little logo down there. On the back, of course, we have the 5 members, their photos, the track listing at the top, more of your usual little copyright notes, Polydor logo again right there. This is a gatefold, so we get a really nice black and white image. Try and get it so the light doesn't reflect there. Nice black and white image of the 5 of them. And then we actually have the lyrics. I'll show you again. Let's hold it like that. We have the lyrics there to Stargazer down the side there. And of course, lists for band members and all your production notes as normal. It lists Ken Kelly as a gentleman who painted this artwork. You can tell it's a nice kind of oil-based painting. Inside, we don't really have anything like lyric sheet or anything other than the Stargazer lyrics down the side. It is a white paper sleeve on the inside, nothing too fancy there. It is 180 as well. Here is side 1, side A. We got the Polydor logo, nice orange, stereo. Quite an old school looking label there, really. And then our track listing. It does, interestingly enough, if you can kind of see, if I hold it right in, you can see it says Blackmore's Rainbow on there. So it's still very much Richie Blackmore's band. And then side 2 with just the 2 tracks there. Quite cool. I like the old school looking labels on some of these records, even though it's a reissue from not many years ago. I like that they keep that kind of old school look on some of these things, get that retro feel. I like that. Track listing. There's not much on it, as I say. So side 1, we have Tarot Woman, Run with the Wolf, Starstruck, Do You Close Your Eyes? And then, as I say, side 2 is just Stargazer, and then A Light in the Black. And that is it. Those 2 tracks are 8.5 minutes, as I stated earlier. So, you know, it has a sensible run time on side 2. And then those shorter tracks sit on side 1 or side A. It's where to begin with it in terms of the tracks. We start with Tarot Woman, and we have this very 70s synth starting the track off. That sort of gliding synthesizer sound. And you think, yeah, okay, this is very 70s. And then boom, we get into that hard rock and we're off and running. With the riff, we kind of hear that riff slowly building up. The dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. It builds in volume. We have Cozy Powell's drum fill, and then yeah, we're off and running. We bring Dio in to the mix, and we mean business. We know that Rainbow means business, and off we go. You know, we have the solos early on from Blackmore. We have the synth solo, but you know, the synth solos are good, I guess. I'm not as a keyboard player or a synth player or anything, so I can't judge hugely on those. I'm not a guitarist, but I guess I can still judge the guitar solos, and they are perfect. They are so nice. Richie Blackmore is such a talented musician. We know from his songwriting with Deep Purple and Rainbow. Fantastic. Absolutely amazing. We go into Run with the Wolf, which is more, it's not got that proggy feel to it. It's more sort of meat and potatoes, hard rock, punchy, you know. It's more to the point. You know, when you get tracks like Tarot Woman and Stargazer and that, we have these, it goes off on little tangents that work for the song. Whereas, yeah, like Run with the Wolf, definitely more, you know, ABC, hard rock, mid-tempo, stamp your foot type of track, you know. Starstruck is a bit more like Tarot Woman. We go off in different directions with that. Do You Close Your Eyes? A lot of people state this is the filler track. The track that doesn't really fit as well. It's not a bad track. I see some people compare it to sort of 70s Kiss. I kind of can hear that. You know, it sounds very sort of made for radio play. A little bit more commercial than maybe a couple of the other tracks. I still think it's a good track. I can kind of get where people are coming from on the kind of filler side of it. And then on to Stargazer, and I've mentioned this track massively through this video already. It's so good. I was so glad to hear it live when I saw Richie Blackmore in those couple of shows. The drum intro and then the dun 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 dun, such a heavy riff. Dio's vocals, amazing. You know, him singing about his, you know, sorcery and Dungeon and Demons is not sort of lyrical content that grasps me. I like stuff that you can sort of kind of relate to. I've never gone off to fought dragons or wielded my sword, so it's not something I can connect to as much, but I don't care on this. I don't care. Because I love it. I love Dio, what he's singing about. I love his voice. The back sort of passage, his vocals on that, on the back end of his track as well, are just flawless. Absolutely flawless. And, you know, it's 8.5 minutes. I wouldn't care if it's 8.5 hours, this track. It's such, bear in mind it's a 76, it's such a heavy, and yes, we'd already had heavy riffs and we'd had heavy songs by 76, you know, 70 we had Deep Purple and Sabbath putting out heavy material, but, you know, 6 years later we're getting heavier almost with this riff, and it's not letting up these heavy bands coming about. A Light in the Black is another long track, it's another 8.5 minute track. And this is where the band showcase themselves. I'm not just talking about Dio's vocals. I'm not just talking about Blackmore's guitar. I'm talking about the bass. I'm talking about Cozy Powell. I'm talking about the keyboards and the synths. They all get their moments. They really do on this track. And again, it just shows the powerhouse nature of each individual musician and how well Blackmore had done in creating this band around him. Especially with the lineup change since the first record. And what's really interesting, just coming back to production, this was done in Munich and it only took a month to record, and most of these tracks were first or second takes. And if you think that's the first or second take and how good these sound, just, it blows your mind. It just goes to show you how good this band really is and how good these musicians are individually and then coming together into that unit. And yeah, it really shows on this album. I think it is a step up from the first record, and I like that first record, I really do, but I do think this is the big step up with the level of musicianship. Now, in terms of how it sounds, the only thing I would like a little bit more of is that bass to go up a little bit more. I do have the option on my record player to obviously change the bass and the mids and whatnot, but I kind of like to keep it where it is a little bit. I don't like to mess around too much. I kind of got the sound how I like it for most records, but yeah, I could have done with the bass just going up a little bit in that mix. I don't think maybe it is a production thing. I think it's for press more than anything, but yeah, I'd like that bass coming through a little bit more with the bass guitar, and I think the kicks could be a little bit punchier maybe, but that's a very slight nag. It's nothing major. It doesn't massively affect me. I don't listen to it and think, oh my god, this sounds horrendous. Dynamically good. The soundstage is, I think, quite good. The highs are very good, as are the lows. I think this sounds a solid pressing. It doesn't sound digital. It doesn't sound flat. There's a lot of body to it. There's a lot of life to it. Dio's vocals come through very nice. Blackmore's guitar is very warm coming through the speakers. So yeah, I'm not disappointed. I'd had slightly mixed reviews looking at it. Some were very favourable on it. Some others were not as favourable on it. I think it's ultimately dependent on what you are after and your listening experience and your ears and kind of what you're used to. Some people will have a sort of a better palette on terms of what they want to hear or more experience with certain things compared to others. But overall, I am very impressed with this one. I am not disappointed in any way. I'm really happy with Rainbow Rising, the second full-length record by Rainbow, with Ronnie James Dio at his absolute best. It needs to be part of your collection. You know, if you haven't got it, if you're a rock and metal fan and this isn't in there, I'm disappointed in you, you know. But there we have it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to go and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell for all notifications and smash that like button while you're at it. Don't forget to do that. More vinyl content coming your way. Plenty more content across the channel. Keep your eyes peeled. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you have those, at Vinylhead UK for both of those. Go and give those pages a follow. Stargazer. Rising. Love it. See you soon.